They love you and they love the show, which is a nice feeling. Welcome to all of you. And I have to say, this show it's hard to talk about because it's so tough, but it's also so joyful. And it has stuck with me. I had a connection to the story, very close connection, and I feel cathartic having seen it. And I just want to thank you for telling the story. I'm sure it was not easy. Before we talk about the show, because we're in a room filled with actors, I wanted to know, what was an acting performance that impacted you as a young person that made you want to pursue this craft? Maybe start with Michelle.
Such a good question.
This can be film, TV, anything that you saw. It could be theater, anything that like imprinted on you this magic.
I think it's like a combination of Julie Andrews and P.T. I'm like Barnum. That's wrong. Anderson. Thank you. I'm very old.
The circus.
I look very good.
I wasn't expecting it. Gosh.
It's like the Julie Andrews from my childhood, where you're just like, there are magical people out
She's
there.
like an angel.
Yeah, she's just like this, and there's so full of grace, and there's like no effort, but there's just so much expenditure, and then when I grew up, and I started doing this when I was very young, but not in like a precise kind of way. It was just something I sort of fell into, and then I sort of discovered later, like in my late teens, oh, I'm really into this, and there's like a world that I would like to inhabit, and that was really like the sort of like P.T. Anderson phase. So it's a combination for me of those two.
Good references, Jenny.
I think for me, it's really hard to choose, but I was a big, like, we rent movies from the library kid, and a lot of those were old Technicolor movies, and I really loved Judy Garland. I really loved Gene Kelly, and especially Carol Burnett in Annie, because I thought she was so frightening and she was so funny.
Miss Hannigan, she was
Miss
so
Hannigan,
good.
and she was desperate and horny and cruel and just a little, like a little skinny wiggle of something terrible, and she was just like, I couldn't take my eyes off her. And then when I was older, I remember seeing Ruth Gordon in Rosemary's Baby and just being so taken by her. And also, like, the first thing I remember is wanting to be an actor, and I hope I get to do it until I'm old and then I die, and like I want to do it forever. And I remember seeing her playing a Satanist who is not like dressing that up. Like, she wasn't like, trying to be scary. Yeah. She was just like in the apartment building, and I just thought the performance was incredible. And I was
played it very
like
naturally, didn't you?
Yeah, I was like, I want to be like, how do you be natural but be extreme? I think maybe that's a good zone, and I just love her.
Great choices, Rob.
For me, the first thing that I saw where I was like, I have to do that, was the Canadian kids sketch show, You Can't Do That on Television.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
I would watch that as a child, and I did not enjoy myself. I would get a stomach ache being like, why aren't I in that? And I was like, how do I get to Canada? I have to stop going to school. Mom, Dad, what do we do?
And Alanis Morissette started on that show.
She did, yeah. And also, with that show, what I love about sketch comedy and stuff is like people don't sit down for weeks beforehand, like learning how to make shoes in the old Italian way. They just jump in and they just do it. So they figure out what they need to believe in the scene, and they have to right away get you on their side. And so there's an excitement and without a netness to that stuff that I loved it about that show, and I love about Good Things Now, where people just go bananas.
What amazing spectrum of references on stage, too. That is so... I did not expect to hear those names, and You Can't Do That on Television. Very formative in my childhood as well. Thank you so much for sharing that. So Dying for Sex, for those who don't know, was based on the Wondery podcast of the same name and created by the amazing Kim Rosenstock and Liz Merriweather, just incredible storytellers. And I've had a chance to listen to the podcast, but for those who haven't, it features Nikki, who is Jenny's character, and her best friend Molly's journey of self-discovery as she copes with her stage 4 diagnosis. And the real-life Molly ultimately passed away in March of 2019 at the age of 45, which is what makes watching the show that much more impactful and also difficult. So I'd like to start with Michelle and talk to you about the podcast as the term, I guess we call IP today, and using it as inspiration for the show. And I was saying backstage, of all the series and films and content coming from podcasts, this for me felt like the most natural segue, like lent itself most naturally to making a show. So tell me how you felt listening to it, and what did you envision for your role in telling the story for the screen?
I think their voices are so strong. Like, if you have a chance to listen to the podcast, they come through with incredible emotional transparency, humor, and love. Like, the podcast cannot really contain the spirit of these two women and the friendship of these two women. So it was a constant reference point for us. Like, let's go back and listen to the pod. Like, what are we going to do? Let's go back and listen to the pod. So it was something that and Molly wrote a book also that was like her, a goal that she set for herself before she passed was to write her book, and I think it was published after her death, but she knew that it was going to be published. So we also had a book as a reference point. And then it's interesting because, they're real people, and so you are beholden to their spirits and their energy, but you are less beholden to their speech patterns, or because people don't know who they were. So we didn't bind ourselves to literalism in that way, although it rubs off because you're constantly listening to the podcast and going back to the material and referencing it. So you're imbibing it all of the time, but I didn't have to do a kind of like forensic examination of how she walked and, things like that. But a lot of that information was available, and we were sort of, osmosing it. And I think in terms of what I wanted for it.
In the room that you allowed yourself, and that obviously the show creators allowed for you to create something new, because you're not going to hire Michelle Williams to just recreate something, right? Because you're bringing something very magical to whatever you're doing.
That's a very kind thing to say. Thank you very much. I think, and Nikki was there. Like, Nikki was on set with us all the time. And she also gave us the latitude and said, just go, take these departures and these imaginative leaps. And I love it. And I love watching them live out experiences that we didn't have, but are similar to what we had. Or then some places we were like very biblical about it. We were like, this is what it is. And she was up for all of it. So she really gave us she gave us the green light. And then I think, I find it so uncommon. When I listened to the podcast, I was so moved, and I didn't know why. And I don't often come apart at the seams like that anymore. And I wanted to be able to, and I didn't understand why. And that's really why I wanted to make this, was like, what is this? What is at the heart of this that is moving me to a place where I am thinking about my own life in a slightly different way? And can we translate that into a show and then give it to a larger audience? So that was always like, what is the seed of this thing? So that was why what was on my mind and why I wanted to do this.
And to that point, even though the word dying is in the title, it's all about living. And that's what I've taken from this show, is how do we reframe our day to day? And it's not necessarily, having the adventures that these characters have, but that's what the show is about. And at least that's what I gleaned from the podcast and then what you've all brought to the screen. And Jenny, I know you had a chemistry read with Michelle as part of your casting process, and you were a wee starstruck when you first walked into the room. And who wouldn't be, by the way? But when you walked into the room, what did you immediately feel a connection to Michelle in terms of not only you're both artists, but you clearly are friends, and we feel that. But what connected you in that moment?
I mean, yes, of course, there's like the actor and like shining orb that I have admired as a fan for so long, and that's a real thing. It's a real energy. It's a real state. And then, but the reason why I think Michelle is this just like a performer of such like velocity, like such like energy, is that like I felt at least like a real sensitivity and nervous system inside. And I was like, oh, she has this big binder. It's like bigger than her. She's trying to prepare. She wants this to be good. She is looking for someone. She is not like, oh, and let them come to me. It was like, oh, she's looking for the other person who's supposed to be here. And that's also like a really, that's a sensitive position to be in. And I was like, I think what I saw in Michelle is that like she wanted to connect, was hoping it would happen. And that made me feel that I belonged in the room because I had the same hope. And that is really, that's where it begins. Like you can just feel that if someone's boxing you out or not. And I think also in the chemistry read, from what I remember, there was like just a tiny bit of improv in a scene that did end up in the show, but maybe like kind of in a different place or a different setting. And I remember being like, she's letting me. I'm letting her. And at one point, Michelle as Molly in the chemistry read like got really, like Molly was mad at Nikki when Nikki said in the chemistry read like, that's why you married Steve, and it's just kind of always been chicken shit. And I was like, oh, like I was like, it's acting. She's not. Michelle Williams is not mad at you. You're acting. You're in it. You're doing it. Like, but that is it's an incredible experience that I will remember forever. And not to be like a gross cheese ball, but I was thinking like, I felt how you felt about you can't do that on television. When I read the script, I kind of was like, God damn it. Like, if I don't get to do this, I'm going to be really sad. It's kind of like seeing your dream person or your dream home or something. Like, I could really be there. I don't know what I would do, but I know I feel very drawn. And I was saying to myself, well, I really like this script, and if this is like my one chance to do this scene with Michelle, like I'll take it. I'll take whatever size I get of the experience that I'm asking for. Cause like, who am I to say what the delivery is going to be? But like, I can at least say I prepped this. I want it. Like this brilliant thing. I'm just going to get in there. And it was,
and you did.
It. Yeah.
You did. Congratulations, by the way. You made it happen. So I actually have an audience question that's sort of related to this that I am happy to ask right now, which is from Jillian. Where's Jillian? Hi, Jillian. And it's for Michelle and Jenny on this topic. What was it like for the both of you to create such a grounded version of a friendship from the beginning of the show? And obviously you've hinted at that, but Michelle, maybe talk about your process in the bonding with Jenny and how important that was for you.
It really happened in that room, in that moment. I mean, it was like love at first sight. It was like,
had you met before?
Like outside of a bathroom.
Yeah.
But we were. You could tell that there was just this connection to each other, to these roles, to our spirits in real time, looking at each other, responding to each other, honoring the spirits of the people who came before us, and it happened in that instant, in that room. Like it was just like so obvious. It's funny because it's like an invisible thing, but it's just so obvious. Right. It began, and then it still hasn't stopped.
Yeah, it hasn't stopped, which is really like so much. Also, like that is an incredible thing about this project, and maybe Molly in general as like a person on earth, and then a spirit. It's like all about like keep opening it, like keep like changing, like passing energy. And there is like I continue to learn from our project, and of course, like I think we both are good at preparing. The script was excellent. The characters were really well defined, but I noticed that neither one of us seemed to question it. Like we just kind of rolled on into our work and did different things in the scenes. And why question an ease or a trust that is building? Like you don't want to spook it away. Yeah. Not that I think we could have, but
that is chemistry, though.
Yeah,
not having to try so hard, and I think we all felt that watching it. And Rob, congratulations on one of the wildest things I've seen on screen as of late. Really stunning performance from you. And this is not an easy role to play for many reasons. What scared you the most about saying yes to this? And how did your cast and clearly this amazing group of people surrounding you give you the confidence to attempt to play this guy, neighbor guy?
Okay, I guess what scared me the most would be the fact that I would have to play somebody helping nurse someone through the end of their life. And I knew that would be sad and very difficult. And I knew that it would be, exponentially sadder and more difficult because we were going to have so much fun in the lead up to it. So we were really going to grow together as characters, because it's such a gorgeous relationship that Molly and Neighbor Guy have, and it ramps up so beautifully from at first, there's animosity, there's neighborly animosity. They don't like each other. They have very clearly different habits of cohabitation for the hallway they live in. Neighbor Guy is dirty and smelly and loud and obnoxious. And, Molly is conscientious and kind of quiet, except for the parade of guys that she brings in, which
and the peeing on the dog. That's totally outside of that.
Yeah, but she already has her hooks into him when that happens.
True, good point.
So it was the fact that I knew that I would have to give myself so completely to, the lust, and then the love, and then the loss and the grief, and remain open throughout that. Because the wonderful thing about Molly and the wonderful thing about the show, she's the only character who dies in it. And everybody else is left afterwards with the lessons that she imparted to them. And if you're going to really absorb them, it's going to hurt. And so there was pain, both physical and emotional, on the set during takes, during relaxed times in between when we're like eating and sitting in chairs and budgeting ourselves emotionally for the stuff that we know we're going to have to do. So I knew that to do it well would mean that I would have to get hurt. And so that was not, that wasn't like a light decision. I had to take the job because I'd amassed a lot of gambling debt during the pandemic.
So it was a practical choice first.
So there was that, but beyond that,
and now we're seeing how you guys got through the tough moments on set. Yes, this is very exemplary of that.
Yeah.
Well, we're so glad you said yes, and I'm just such a huge fan of yours. It's so great to see you do something so wild, and I hope this opens up new doors for you, Rob.
Oh, thank you.
Huge fan
Me
of
too.
yours. Michelle, you were on Colbert a few months ago in a wonderful performance, and you described yourself to Stephen as a, quote, leap, then look kind of person, in your preference to go heart first into the great unknown with your work. I want to know how those traits that you see in yourself helped you in navigating this particular role, because I have to imagine there's a lot of leaping and self-trust that goes into this.
Yeah. I think you can't be focused on outcome or, I always think, okay, what's the worst thing that could happen here? You're going to be embarrassed. It's going to be embarrassing. You're going to feel embarrassed, and people are going to say that you should be embarrassed of yourself. Nobody's ever died of embarrassment. So if that's the worst thing that can happen, I can withstand that. If I think that there might be some greater good for myself and for a larger audience, I will risk embarrassment over and over and over again. If I have some idea, some inkling, something, because when you look at this thing on paper, I don't know, that could be, it could really go any direction, that could, and then those things actually also become sort of like the most exciting thing to do, because then you think, well, maybe I'm going to find some new territory, and that will be good for me, that will be good for all of us, that'll be, and so I think I really try and imagine kind of throwing it out into a void, that I will be safe and things that are important to me in my life will remain, whether or not I splat on the ground with a piece of work or somebody puts air under the wings and says, it's okay, you can, So I think you kind of, so that is more my guiding principle in work than life. Life has real consequences. Look, there's a consequence that would happen, which is if you splat enough on the ground, they're not going to give you another chance. And so that consequence I'm always aware of. How many risks can I take? How much experimentation can I allow before somebody says, actually, we really don't want to see that anymore at all. It's too much of that.
She's had enough chances.
You've gone too far, on the edge of your own interests or something. But I find that this is a place where I'm able to take those risks because like there is no life and death between action and cut. It costs, and I'm always aware of that too. Like there's both the understanding that this is not really happening. You do not really have cancer, but there is also what you're speaking to is like if you're doing it correctly, it costs and it will hurt you. But you hold the thought the entire time, I am okay right now. Like I am experiencing these things as a conduit. So it both hurts, but you also hold the presiding thought, this is hurting through me, it's not hurting me. And so that kind of like dance, that kind of balance is sort of what allows me to feel like I'm going to be okay.
Thank you for sharing that. And Jenny and Rob, tell me about the impact of having Nikki as a resource on set, but also in the Jenny for prep for your character, but just generally having her around as this vestige survivor of this incredible story, this incredible friendship. And what comfort did she give you during your tough times?
I mean, can either of you believe that we had access to her during all that? I mean, she is the warmest spirit who had, unlike us, had some experience in telling this story before and seeing how it like bounced off the world and knowing that it was good and helped people, and then to help us tell it in a new way. I mean, first of all, independent of the story, she's an amazing person. She is a effervescent, beautiful spirit. You can see, because I've met her, I never met Molly. You can see what would have attracted Molly to Nikki, like a magnet or a lighthouse. So a very special person, incredibly generous and incredibly enthusiastic. I mean, I could have a long, great career and never have somebody that amazing in your corner to just show, kind of give you permission and show you and guide you. I mean, it was outrageous.
It was outrageous. Yeah, you've described her perfectly. I don't think anybody on our set needed a reminder that we were holding something that was precious to someone else. I think everybody was very aware this is something that happened. There's someone still here on Earth watching us handle this story. But I do think it's the first time that I've ever worked with a real person who went through something both beautiful and sort of like life dismantling, or reorganizing or something, and was there trying to see how we interpreted her experience. And I think Nikki was very generous and courageous in saying like, no, you don't have to, do an impression of me. That's not what this is for. That's not what will make me feel good. I won't feel disrespected if you're not like me, trying to be me. But she was very generous in like allowing me to ask her personal questions, I think. And I was unsure of like, what's too intrusive? I don't want her to feel that I'm asking her things so that I can be better at a performance, because also I care about her. And there was a weird middle zone. It was like we were like sharing a plate of something where she needed to be asked because she was not done with her grieving process. Is not done. It is continuous. It changes form for her, is what she told me. So I asked her about her grieving process. I asked her about, are you really this explosive when you feel anger because there is injustice occurring? When someone you love is being treated unfairly, or you think there is waste happening, and she is that way. And she is like, she's a bit more hardcore than I am. But
Good friend to have, by the way.
Yeah.
Very good friend to have.
Yeah. Wonderful. And hearing her describe what it's like, she went into a very deep description about how she felt about the doctor who misdiagnosed and disregarded and disrespected Molly way back and could have saved her life. And that is a piercing, terrible injustice that I find hard to think about now. And she told me what it was like for her to just like get that out. And I think it really was very generous of her because it helped me in my performance as well.
I love that. And what an amazing resource, to say the least. We have a great audience question from Megan. Where's Megan? Hi, Megan. Because I definitely want to talk about your incredible writing and directing crew that you had on this show. Megan says, this show has a very specific, dark comedic tone. How did the director help to communicate what tone they wanted you to accomplish in a given moment? And obviously you had a rotating group of people helping you, but what was helpful in that director to actor communication? Maybe Michelle, you can start.
It's classic Liz Merriweather. It's her sensibility. And that's what I kind of finally locked into because, you know, there's a multitude of, well, it's like, I guess it's like a piece of music or something, you know, it's like, it's so layered and you're like, is this going to come together or is it going to be discordant? And then like allowing it also to be discordant because life can be so discordant where you're like, it's too much all at once and it doesn't make sense. And you're like, oh, that is the tone. That's perfect. That's what it is. So I think like I used to, when we started, I was like, what's the tone? What's the tone? I need to know like what world I'm inhabiting. And then I like spent more time with Liz. I was like, it's her tone and allow it to clash.
I love the score too, I have to say. I think the music is so helpful in that it's almost like this dissonant circus music. That's kind of what I think. And it really brings to the screen this idea of there's complete chaos. But I think the music is super helpful. And Rob, what was your experience with the directors?
Okay, so Shannon Murphy, who directed, and Kim Rosenstock and Liz Merriweather, who wrote and produced it, really functioned in amazing like mental emotional lockstep, and so it was really wonderful to have everybody united in trying to make the same thing at the same time in the same manner. So it felt really very holistic and connected, and they were just magnificent. Those three women, you know, were so brilliant at helping us, you know, stir the pot and get out what we needed and a pile take after take of things that would be usable. But yeah, they were so united and so confident in what they wanted to do. So that made our jobs quite a bit easier.
That's amazing. And in closing, I'd love to know what has been the most meaningful thing that people who knew Molly have said to you, or people in this world, in Nikki's world, have said to you about the way you told this story. Because I imagine it was not an easy process for people to absorb this and watch it. But if there's something that they said that you thought, wow, this was worth all of this time and emotional capital that you spent telling it.
I guess, I mean, I met a few of Nikki's friends sort of by accident. Like she has so many friends. It seems like she's one of these people that like you meet someone that knows her and they really love her so deeply. And I think we're all those people as well. But one of her friends said to me that he was, and I think like, of course, like felt protective of her, you know, and that like, he just was like, I feel like she can see in a new context, although it's still their story, but it's new. It's a transformative context, like validation of what these two women achieved. And that made me feel like, wow, that's like, I think one thing that I would want. It's kind of like, do you see what I see? I think I'm doing the thing that I'm doing, but do you think I'm doing it? And I hope we showed that. It made me feel good to hear that.
I got to give Molly's mom a hug. She came to, I hadn't met her or spoken to her or anything, but she came to our premiere and I didn't know that she was there. And then Nikki led me to her and I got to hold her.
I'm so glad you had that experience. What a gift. And Rob, how about you? Does Neighbor Guy really exist, or he's an amalgam of...
That's the thing. He is an amalgam. So
Okay.
Nikki told me that it really made her happy that Liz and Kim had amalgamated some people and kind of created a love story, you know, a romantic love story for Molly, that in fact she didn't really have in the end. And so Nikki said that it really helped her in her heart to see Molly have that, in a fictionalized manner, but it's weird, the realm that we were operating in, and so to know that the show brought some peace and a type of joy to Nikki herself, felt very, very good.
Well, I just want to say thank you for telling the story. You did a beautiful job. We're so honored. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming, everybody.